Good evening. Hope everybody had a good weekend. I pretty well spent just time doing stuff here, doing working with the super secret squirrel project, and coming along pretty well. So other than that, don't know really what in particular to talk about. I don't really have anything extracurricular, if you will. Just been a pretty boring weekend. So news has been happening. That's nonstop. Some pretty important stuff, to tell you the truth. Kind of crazy stuff. But like I said, we are going to continue this gradual slide to the edge of the cliff. I don't think we're quite to the edge, man. I think we're getting there. And I think the edge might possibly be crumbling too. So not only are we moving closer to it, but it's moving closer to us. And any one of the major events that look to be on par, really going to throw things for a loop. A lot going on with the economy. That I'm sure you're aware of. Not any better. Doesn't look that it's going to be any better. And of course, conflict with Russia is looking more likely, as well as with China. All of that is in the news just today, on Sunday. That's in the news. So I have several tabs open to talk to you about. So let's see. Go ahead and bring yous on over if I can hit the button. Pardon me. Anyway, like I said, the economy is not looking so hot. And I'm not talking about just the U.S. Pretty much the West. Man, oh man. Says here, BRICS carries greater economic weight than G7, says a study. That's a pretty big claim. The BRICS group, comprising of the world's 5 major developing economies, has overtaken the group of 7, G7, by making up a larger share of the global gross domestic product based on purchasing power parity. Data compiled by Acorn Macro Consulting, a UK-based macroeconomic research firm, shows. According to the findings, the bloc of BRICS countries, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, contributes 31.5% of the world's GDP. Meanwhile, the G7, consisting of US, Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, and the UK, and considered the most advanced economic bloc of countries on the planet, add up to 30.7%. The gap between the two groups is expected to continue to grow, analysts say, as China and India are experiencing robust economic growth and more countries are interested in joining BRICS. Earlier this year, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said that more than a dozen nations have expressed an interest in joining BRICS, including Algeria, Argentina, Bahrain, Bangladesh, Indonesia, Iran, Egypt, Mexico, Nigeria, Pakistan, Sudan, Syria, Turkey, the United Arab Emirates, and Venezuela. Meanwhile, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and Bangladesh have acquired equity in the new development bank BRICS funding organization. So it's certainly growing and looking to be growing quickly. The more established that this gets, the closer we get to the end of the dollar. If these other countries would somehow fast track into that system, and especially if they drop the SWIFT, we would be hurting immediately. We are not in a good place. We do not have any kind of firm footing anymore at all. I mean, we really didn't before, but see, because the dollar was used for the trade of oil and the dollar was used just for trade internationally, just in general, we never had to worry, right? Because that reliance on the dollar kept it alive. That reliance alone kept the dollar alive. But we don't have that luxury anymore. And the reality of the matter is there's nothing but bullshit that backs the dollar. It's a fiat currency. So, I mean, it just tanks. And the thing of it is if that happens, there has to be some kind of new system replace it. That is what I'm concerned about. And I think they're trying to lay the groundwork right now to actually move to a different system. And man, I've watched these cats long enough to know that they've got separate groups working in separate areas, and everybody's going to meet at their perspective middle, if you will, and tie all these different systems in together. We're there. We're there. All they have to do is drop the dollar, drop physical currency, and it's over for us. Now, I'm not talking about the death of the dollar. Death of the dollar alone, I wouldn't necessarily say it's over for us. But the death of the dollar combined with a new system, with a digital currency, that is the end. Really, truly is. Have a sip of coffee real quick. Of course, as if the news hasn't been bad enough when it comes to food costs, global food prices likely to soar higher, says World Trade Organization. Says here, food prices surged 18% globally last year. That's huge, including a 21% rise in the cost of grain, the World Trade Organization estimated in its Global Trade Outlook published on Wednesday. According to the organization, fertilizer prices saw an even larger increase of 63% year on year. The WTO noted that, in theory, higher food costs should encourage more agricultural production, resulting in greater availability and lower prices for food in the future, but warned that expensive fertilizers could lead to reduced crop yields and ultimately new price spikes. I don't think that was quite written right. The organization also noted that food prices fluctuated strongly in 2022, first jumping 19% between January and May, following the start of Russia's military operation in Ukraine, and then dropping 15% between May and December. Overall, while global food supplies are less precarious than many had feared in connection with the Ukraine crisis, they remain a cause for concern, WTO warned. According to its calculations, the volume of world wheat trade, for instance, fell by roughly 7.5% since 2021, which leaves little margin for error if a major producer suffers a crop failure or climate-related natural disaster. World Trade Organization Director General Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, I'm sure I've got that about 50 miles off, on Wednesday called on developed economies to be vigilant to signs of the food crisis triggering hunger in poorer nations. She reiterated her earlier calls for lifting export restrictions on food and fertilizers, noting that as of April 2023, some 67 countries have such curbs. She also warned that global trade is likely to remain under pressure from external factors in 2023. According to her, These include the crisis in Ukraine and other geopolitical tensions, inflation, and the impact of tightening monetary policy. This makes it even more important for governments to avoid trade fragmentation and refrain from introducing obstacles to trade. Investing in multilateral cooperation on trade would bolster economic growth and people's living standards over the long term, she concluded. So, you have to understand that last part of that was pretty much directly directed at what's going on with the BRICS situation. That's what they're trying to say, okay? What they're trying to say is avoid the trade fragmentation, all right? And that comes from several ways, currency being one of them. And it says to refrain from introducing obstacles to trade. More sanctions and all of the other stuff that's been involved in what's been going on. All the nations involved that are on the West's side of things, if you will, on Ukraine's side. Man, they've really kind of done it in for themselves. They really, truly have. With the sanctions and everything else going on, we've just made our own situations worse. We're not hurting them. We're not hurting them. And they're about ready to sidestep all around us. And, I'm telling you, it is not going to end well for us. So anyway, continuing on, this here global economic outlook weakest in decades, says the IMF. I had to have some coffee. And some nicotine. All right. World economy is facing its weakest period of growth since the 1990s in the next 5 years due to problems triggered by the pandemic and political tensions. IMF Managing Director Kristalina Georgieva stated on Thursday. A severe slowdown in the global economy last year following the COVID-19 pandemic and the conflict in Ukraine is set to continue in 2023. And could persist for the next 5 years, she warned. Global GDP will grow at about 3% over the next half-decade, compared to an average of 3.8% seen in the past 20 years, representing the worst economic performance in more than 3 decades. The IMF expects global GDP to expand by less than 3% this year, which is in line with the January projection of 2.9%. Last year, global growth almost halved following an initial post-pandemic rebound in 2021, sliding from 6.1% to 3.4%, Georgieva said, ahead of the IMF World Economic Outlook report, which is due to be released on April 11. 2 days. Up to 90% of advanced economies are likely to experience a decline in their growth rate this year, she warned, with activity in the U.S. and Eurozone hit by the higher interest rates. So you hear what she's saying. The higher interest rates here with a decline. So that's not good. With rising geopolitical tensions, with inflation still running high, a robust recovery remains elusive, Georgieva said. That harms the prospects of everyone, especially for the most vulnerable people and most vulnerable countries, she added. The IMF had warned against economic fragmentation. Well, we talked about that. According to Georgieva, soaring inflation facing most of the world's wealthy nations will force central banks to continue interest rate hikes, adding pressure to the banking industry despite the financial uncertainty following recent turmoil with lenders in the U.S. and Switzerland. In other words, they're going to crank that faucet even tighter. She urged the world community to be vigilant and more agile than ever. That means get your ass ready. adding that regulators may come across more complicated choices to protect the financial system amid persistent inflation and challenges in the banking sector. Complicated choices, you don't say. I'm sure that's not real complicated for them. It's going to be real damn complicated for you, but, you know. Lastly, it says long-term disintegration in global trade, such as restrictions on capital flows and international cooperation, as well as curbs on migration, could slash global GDP by up to 7% or $7 trillion, which is the equivalent of the combined annual production of Germany and Japan, Georgieva warned. Watch, it's going off like crazy here. So again, not good. And the next one, well, you should have probably knew it was coming. And the economic ninja has been all over this for quite some time. Morgan Stanley issues apocalyptic real estate warning. Yeah, well, dude with a bro hawk and a dream was talking about this like more than a month ago. So, you know, Morgan Stanley Wealth Management has predicted a collapse in the U.S. commercial real estate sector that will be worse than the great financial crisis. The market faces a huge hurdle, with strategists expecting a commercial property slump of around 40%, worse than in 2008, according to Chief Investment Officer Lisa Shillette. More than half of the $2.9 trillion in U.S. commercial mortgages will be up for refinancing in the next couple of years, she points out. Even if current rates stay where they are, new lending rates are likely to be 3.5 to 4.5 percentage points higher than they are many of the CRE's existing mortgages, she wrote in the report, adding that the sector is facing a huge refinancing wall. The dire warning follows turmoil in U.S. banking and successive interest rate hikes by the Federal Reserve aimed at curbing runaway inflation. Aside from the interest rates, commercial real estate market is also grappling with sluggish demand for office space brought on post-pandemic remote work and rising maintenance costs. These kinds of challenges can hurt not only the real estate industry, but also entire business communities related to it, Shillette noted, adding that office vacancy rates recently moved toward a 20-year high. Yep, and that's causing all of its own collapses. It's crazy. It is crazy. Huh, man. Fun times. Hey, at least we're going to stop talking about the economy. I mean, we'll move on to, I don't know, happier topics, like war. Beijing simulates strikes on Taiwan. Beijing has simulated precision strikes on Taiwan during a combined military exercise around the island. Chinese state media reported on Sunday the maneuvers involved an aircraft carrier were launched in response to Taiwanese President Tsai Ing-wen's trip to the U.S. The Taiwanese Defense Ministry said 9 naval vessels and 71 warplanes had been detected near the island as of Sunday morning. It added that 45 aircraft, including fighter jets, surveillance planes, and drones, crossed into the island's air defense identification zone. Taiwan's own patrol planes, as well as Navy ships and land-based missile systems, were activated to respond to these activities, the ministry said. Senior Colonel Shi Yi, spokesman for the People's Liberation Army Eastern Theater Command, said on Saturday that ships and planes were encircling Taiwan as part of the exercise. She described the drills as a warning against the collusion between separatist forces seeking Taiwan independence and external forces and against their proactive activities. The 3-day war games named United Sharp Sword were launched on Saturday following Tsai's return from the U.S. Beijing views Taiwan, which, well, that just goes into history. On Friday, Beijing blacklisted 2 Taiwan-based groups it accused of promoting the island's independence. As a part of her 10-day Central and North American tour, Tsai met with U.S. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy, who vowed to continue support for Taipei. I believe our bond is stronger now than at any time or any point in my lifetime, the Republican congressman said. A U.S. delegation led by House Foreign Affairs Committee Chairman Michael McCall arrived in Taiwan on Thursday. McCall, who met with Tsai upon her return from the U.S., accused Beijing of saber-rattling and warned that it should think twice about invading. Officials in Beijing have stated that they seek peaceful reunification with Taiwan, but have accused Washington of meddling in its domestic affairs and encouraging secessionist politicians on the island. Washington officially supports the One China policy, which means there can only be one Chinese government. Nevertheless, the U.S. has sold weapons to Taiwan and promised to defend the island in case of attack from the mainland. Tsai's meeting with McCarthy on Wednesday marked the second time she had met with a U.S. House Speaker in less than a year. A visit by McCarthy's predecessor, Nancy Pelosi, to Taiwan in August prompted Beijing to stage its largest ever drills in the Taiwan Strait. Yeah, I get that lump in my throat when I think of that, you know. Kind of like a, sour belch. Just, yeah. Even when you say it, it's like Nancy, it comes up, it burns the back of your throat. It's just, eat it. Anyway. Well, U.S. apparently is open to deploying troops in Taiwan, says a lawmaker. You don't say. I wish this guy didn't say. I wish this guy would just go the hell home and not show back up for work. I'm not a fan of this guy. I'm not a fan of any politician, especially this guy. U.S. Senator Lindsey Graham has declared that he would support a formal defense alliance with Taiwan and would send U.S. troops to fight a hypothetical Chinese invasion. Graham, one of the most hawkish Republicans in Congress, claimed that defending Taiwan is in the U.S. national security interest. Traitor. Speaking to Fox News on Sunday, the Republican lawmaker claimed that the U.S. policy of strategic ambiguity, on Taiwan, under which Washington recognizes but does not endorse China's sovereignty over the island, is not working and should be replaced with a formal defense agreement. So the question for the Congress, should we have a defense agreement with the island of Taiwan, he asked. I'd be very much open to using U.S. forces to defend Taiwan because it's in our national security interest to do so. I believe in a one China policy, but I would be willing to fight for Taiwan because Taiwan is a democracy, he continued, later adding that the U.S. has an economic incentive to fight China over the island. 90% of the high-end chips are made in Taiwan, he said. China would have a monopoly on the digital economy. Graham said he would support the sale of U.S.-made fighter jets to Taipei and would back the movement of war forces to South Korea and Japan. Now, also, I want to add here that there's actually been discussions and people tossing around the idea that, it might be a possibility that the United States themselves might take out the chip manufacturing plants just to stop China from being able to do so. I don't know. I'll tell you what, it kind of makes sense, to tell you the truth. It definitely makes sense. We'll see. Of course, we won't know until the skies start glowing orange, I guess. Let's see. Says there are currently several dozen U.S. troops stationed in Taiwan, and the Wall Street Journal reported in February that Washington plans to increase this number to between 100 and 200. Graham's position on Taiwan is hawkish, but in line with that of a growing number of both Democrats and Republicans. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy talks about that. Talks about McCall. Yeah, the rest is probably just going back on what we've already discussed. So, we got all this going on. And if that's not bad enough, we've got all kinds of information that's getting leaked out, left and right. We're not the only ones. There's other countries, too, that getting information leaked left and right. Awful interesting. It's happening with the Western countries. I don't know if I can figure that out or put anything together, but Pentagon in panic after intel leak, says Washington Post. A recent leak of classified documents on Washington's war planning in Ukraine has caused turmoil in the Pentagon, forcing officials to step up security, the Washington Post reported on Saturday, citing sources. Several Western officials interviewed by the outlet said they were still trying to assess the damage from dozens of leaked national security papers, which grabbed the public's attention in recent days, with many wondering how the breach had gone unnoticed for so long. While the first media reports on the story emerged only this week, a batch of the documents was shared on the Discord chat platform in late February and early March. The authenticity of the intelligence remains unverified. Two U.S. officials told the Post that the Pentagon leadership has restricted the flow of intelligence in response to the leak. One source described the measures as unusually strict and a testament to a high level of panic among the top brass. Both U.S. officials and their foreign partners were stunned and even infuriated by the level of detail provided in the documents, which exposed how the U.S. spies on friends and foes alike, the report says, suggesting the files could stir diplomatic unease. Now, I can't put this puzzle together. It's a hard one to figure out. A senior Ukrainian official told the Post that the leak had caused anger in Kiev as the files provided insight into information it wanted to keep secret from Russia, namely vulnerabilities related to ammunition shortages and other battlefield data. Meanwhile, a European intelligence official reportedly expressed concerns that due to the disclosures, the U.S. could cut back on intelligence sharing with allies. While some of the documents made public were supposed to be shielded from foreign nationals, others had been cleared for transfer to the Five Eyes Intelligence Alliance, composed of the U.S., the UK, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. Now, I don't know. But, do you think by chance that... No. Do you think by chance that maybe... this could never happen to us. Hear me out. This could never happen to the United States of America, but we might be able to do this to another country. Could you imagine putting up a balloon up over the country, right? I don't know, 65,000 feet, something like that, right? And just let it float around the country and, hell, escort the damn thing all the way across the country just to make sure it gets there safely. Allow it to transfer data the entire time, right? Because, all smart nations would do that. And after it's done doing all of its job, just blow the fucker out of the sky. Do you think? Just asking the question. Is it, maybe possible? Possible. I don't know how likely, but it sounds funny, doesn't it? I don't know. It could be somebody on the inside. There could be, with all the turmoil between red team and blue team, it could be anything from that all the way up to a Chinese balloon floating across the sky. So, just saying. Hey, blew that hell. I mean, what is that? A $400,000 missile or something like that? Old boy could have leaned out the cockpit of the F-22 and shot it with a 12 gauge. Sorry, couldn't resist that one. All right, this is also, I would assume, as a result of this stuff, South Korea to raise spying concerns with the U.S., says media. Says South Korean government will discuss a leak of classified military documents with the U.S., Reuters reported on Sunday. The document suggests that Washington spied on Seoul to determine that the South Koreans were hesitant to sell artillery artillery ammunition, a little bit different, well, not always, but to the U.S. for fear it would end up in Ukraine. The leaked documents appeared on social media at some point between late February and early April, according to a review by the New York Times on Sunday. The files relating to South Korea show that when Seoul agreed to sell artillery shells to the U.S. last year, Foreign Affairs Secretary Yi Mun-hoo told his boss, National Security Advisor Kim Sung-han, that the government was mired in concerns that the U.S. would not be the end user if South Korea was to comply with the U.S. request for ammunition. Supposedly compiled by the Pentagon, the report was based on signals intelligence, meaning the United States covertly intercepted the communication between Yi and Kim, the newspaper noted. Oopsie. I'm sure it was an accident. They didn't mean to. Okay, so this is how it happened. They picked up the phone, and it wasn't like a new phone. This was like, a mid-90s cordless phone, and not real good phone. And, the White House and all. And, they picked up the cordless phone, and, I don't know, he just turned it on, and it was like cross lines, and he heard the two people talking. I know that's what happened. They just need to be, just need to phone-splain it to South Korea. South Korean policy forbids the transfer of weapons to active conflict zones, according to the report. However, Kim suggested selling 330,000 artillery rounds to Poland, knowing that the U.S. planned on getting the ammunition to Ukraine quickly. Yi stressed that Seoul could not violate its own policy and expressed concern that U.S. President Joe Biden would call his South Korean counterpart Yoon Suk-yeol, I know I got that wrong, and push him to change the policy. Biden and Yoon are due to meet in Washington later this month. The South Korean official told Reuters that the country's policy on arming foreign combatants has not changed. Well, come on over here and we'll tell you what the grand prize package is for you just to kind of forget that. The documents are the latest in a series of leaked files, and it goes into all that yada yada, and, talks about what we already discussed. So, So, we got one tab left. Let's recap, shall we? Our economy is not just going down the shitter, right? It's like a couple of hundred stories up right? with a high pressure pump to push that down the pipe, right? That's the kind of shitter that the economy's in. War, well, which one you want to talk about? All I can do is smile and try to make light of it, folks. It's not funny. It's damn well not funny. Holy shit. And it gets worse, man. It gets worse. So it's bad enough that I done gave you the analogy with where our economy is, and we've talked about war. We've also got nations that are like turning tail and running as far as allies. And one of those presidents is Macron. And I'll tell you what, this is not a good situation. I mean, don't get me wrong. France isn't the end-all, be-all of United States dominance. However, every little bit, even if it is a little bit, every little bit hurts. And this isn't good. And I think you're going to find many, many, many other countries follow suit, especially when it comes to like the UAE, Saudi Arabia, all those nations down through there. You've got Turkey, you've got Syria, you've got, all those nations that aren't going to take our side. Hell, we're still in Turkey. We're still in Syria. Hell, we're still in Afghanistan. As far as I know, we still got some kind of presence there. I don't think it's huge, but I'm pretty sure we got some kind of presence there. It's messed up. Anyway, Macron refuses to back U.S. line on China. Western Europe must pursue strategic autonomy and avoid getting dragged into confrontations on behalf of the U.S., Emmanuel Macron told Politico on Sunday. The French president has made similar assertions before, but has nevertheless followed Washington's lead on Ukraine. In an interview while traveling within China this week, Macron told the news site that Europe faces a great risk if it gets caught up in a crisis that are not ours. The paradox would be that, overcome with panic, we believe we are just America's followers, Macron said. The question Europeans need to answer, is it in our interest to accelerate a crisis on Taiwan? No. The worst thing would be to think that we Europeans must become followers on this topic and take our cue from the U.S. agenda and a Chinese overreaction. Macron met with Chinese President Xi Jinping prior to the interview, concluding afterwards that Europeans cannot resolve the crisis in Ukraine. How can we credibly stay on Taiwan? Watch out. If you do something wrong, we will be there. So what he's saying is, right, that they've already more or less overextended themselves in the situation with Ukraine, and that it would be total nonsense to think that they could go yet on another front. And he's not wrong. That's the thing. He's not wrong. Not a big fan of the guy, but he's just being honest here. Hours after Macron left Chinese airspace, Beijing launched military exercises around Taiwan, a move widely perceived as a response to the island's pro-independence leader Tsai Ing-wen holding a meeting with U.S. lawmakers in California on Wednesday. So it goes into the history and all of that. But be mindful. I believe there's going to be a number of nations tuck tail and run. And a lot of it's because they don't have a choice, right? This isn't their ship. This isn't their ship. We kind of really can't expect them to go down with our ship. I mean, Ah. And here I am. Committing coffee abuse. I'll give myself 10 lashings later. What's up? POTUS on the recorder acknowledging the dollar is done. Oh, yeah? When did that happen? That is not surprising. I don't know if he spoke today or something and spoke on that or... Well, folks, we've got a fair amount of headlines. I mean, it's not super horrible bad, but fair amount. I'm almost out of coffee. That is a crime. All right. Starting out as usual on our first day back with Friday's headlines. Secret NATO war plan leak triggers Pentagon probe, says New York Times. That's the leak that we had talked about. CIA chief admits U.S. blindsided by Saudi-Iran deals, says Wall Street Journal. That's what I was telling you about earlier with the countries kind of turning on us. Chinese automaker may take over VW plant in Russia, says media. EU buying Russian fuel through India, says Reuters. That's more countries working behind the scenes together. West in no position to lecture China on Ukraine, says ambassador. I don't see a link. Did you post a link? Yeah, I don't have I don't know if you tried posting a link here in chat, but it probably won't let you, and I don't think I can change that on the fly. Yeah, it won't let it post a link. You can also, if you want, send the link to the Watchman News at yahoo.com, and yeah, I'll most certainly grab it. So I don't know if it will let you. Because of my settings, I've got settings to not allow links because of the, well, you know, all the hooker accounts. I know you're not one, but it's horrid when you turn that off. Let's see. Yeah, if you want, send it to the Watchman News at yahoo.com. Just make sure it's man is M-A-N, not M-E-N, men. The Watchman News at yahoo.com. Let's see. And let me get over there to that email. And if you send it, I'll see it come in there. Okay. Let's see. Good question. Killer Kyle asked, just an idea, document leak, a great reason for the Restrict Act, maybe asking for a friend. Possibly. I think the Restrict Act, I think it's pretty all-encompassing, to be honest, but a lot of that with the Restrict Act, I think is stuff that's been wrote up a long time ago, because a lot of that is just tying up, like I've been saying, that they're going to be tying up the loose ends to get all the systems interconnected to one another. And this stuff is going to drop fast. When they do this transition, I mean, we're used to government not being able to pour piss out of a boot if they turn it upside down. They're going to manage to get this put in place. And it's... Pardon me. I'm not saying smoothly. They're not interested in smoothly. They're just interested in effectively. And that's usually, especially when the government's doing it, usually not going to be smooth. So, I don't know. That could very well be a part of it. Well, you might be saying, wait a minute. I caught what you're saying now. You're saying they leaked it because of the Restrict Act, that was the cause why they leaked it. You know what? That's possible. That is very... Oh, okay. Well, that's another aspect too. The Hegelian dialectic. To say, oh, look, see this? We have to push it through now. That's true. That's true. Well, you know, what was it that dude said? I can't remember his name off the top of my head. One of Obama's minions. Never let a crisis go to waste. So, crazy. Absolutely crazy. The guy that was in charge of the gun running operation. What was it? Fast and Furious? Was that Fast and Furious? That dude. Can't remember his name, though. Let's see. Refresh email. Let's see. Bank of America event cut over Ukraine criticism. EU nation hit by record high inflation. West didn't allow time for peace in Ukraine, says Lula. U.S. lawmakers expelled over gun control protest. Let's see. Protesters set Macron's favorite Paris restaurant on fire. They're kind of serious. Howdy. Let me, what is it? Waits by the water? Howdy. Glad you're here. Enjoy. We're kind of no frills, and I'm really rough around the edges, but, I somehow try to get it done anyway. Anyway, welcome, and, thank you for coming. Let's see. Where the hell? I covered that one. Okay. U.S.-China rift threatens global growth, says IMF. Police warn of terror attacks ahead of Biden visit, says media. Let's see. France hit by gasoline shortages, says Le Figaro. I never can say that. Blinken admits Afghan failure, says Politico. Almost 2 million unexploded bombs cleared after U.S. war in Laos. Exactly. Let's see. Nord Stream sabotage yacht had traces of explosives, New York Times reports. Now, this is like the third or fourth time I've heard about this damn yacht and having trace of explosives. So they're really trying to push that story. Eastern European farmers protest over grain from Ukraine. Let's see. RT International extends reach via new platforms. China slaps sanctions on U.S. entities. Saudi Arabia to end Yemen war, says media. Blinken predicts start of Ukrainian counteroffensive. Taiwan faces choice between peace and war, says ex-president. Ruble on wild roller coaster ride. Moscow reacts to Blinken's counteroffensive claim. German religious leader calls out Ukrainian diplomats. Kremlin responds to leak of secret NATO war plan. Slovakia claims Russians sabotaged its fighter jets. J.P. Morgan flashes U.S. recession warning. U.S. resumes biolabs program in Ukraine, says Russian MOD. Now, I don't know if they did that or not, but they did. They dumb. Ukraine agrees to halt grain exports to Poland, says an official. Iconic cinematographer dies aged 101. Pole attacks Pope over sex scandal. Olympic medalist calls for Nike boycott. Russia charges Wall Street Journal journalist with espionage, says media. Again, this is Friday's headlines. RT Arabic has huge influence in the Middle East, says Politico. Israel says terrorist attack targeted tourists. EU country increasingly against sanctions on Russia. And the last one from Friday, ex-president urges West to sanction Georgia. Yikes, I gotta have a sip of coffee. I'm seeing what's all going dinging and donging down over here. Lots of dings and dongs. Oh, that email. Uh-huh. All right. Let's see. Get that pulled up here. And we might want to hear it. Okay.
Like all the money's gone and a collapse is imminent. But we have to stay calm and think of ways to prevent a bank run so we can get ours. Let's ensure that all banks are flocking, talking with each other and sharing information in real time using the back channels we set up in October. And let's use the full force of the media to calm the public and to assure them that their deposits are safe. We may not be able to prevent a collapse, but if we work together, we can limit the fallout for us and preserve the continuity of government.
Okay, and I'm just going to say, to be real honest, that's one of those deep fakes. That is not Joe Biden speaking. So, that might work on a little mobile device or something, but I just heard that through a fairly decent sound system. That was not Joe Biden speaking. Just a heads up on that. So you can pick it up if you listen real closely. You can pick it up. It's not him. So I've been actually working with some of those programs as of lately. Because I'm trying to come up with a combination of Morgan Freeman and Samuel L. Jackson. And it's hard because there's those little differences in the speaking and the way it just doesn't nail it perfect. I've been trying, and I'll say he's got that a hell of a lot better and closer than what I've been able to get with what I'm doing. But it still misses the mark pretty significantly. So I can't necessarily say I wished it was true, but it is what it is. You're gonna have a lot of that. You're gonna have a lot of that stuff. Let's see. Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah, I've got I'm at Outlook too. I've got a ton of different email addresses for the Watchman News. Oh, let's see. And that's why I started just to give out the ones like Outlook and Yahoo, because I'm always changing website emails so much. That's why I don't even give out, at whatever, the watchmannews.com, you know. I can make as many email addresses as I want, but I just change them. Every time I redo my website, I change my emails. So, let's see. Right here. Another sip real quick. I am ready for bed tonight. Bring in my little spaceship and go to bed. It's out there blinking away. Anyway, new trove of classified U.S. documents leaked, says New York Times. So this is even more. Trump backs military options against Mexican cartel, says media. China warns U.S. seeking cyber hegemony. EU exposed to high energy costs next winter, says Reuters. Russia exit cost foreign retail brands billions, says Commerçant. And I don't know if I even got the emphasis anywhere right on that, but I read the words. Tesla employees shared sensitive images recorded by cars, says Reuters. Well, that's a new one to me. Your car is spying on you? Wow. Not only is it watching where you're going, but it's listening to what you're saying. Awesome. Failed Ukrainian nuclear plant attack revealed, says the Times. Yeah, give me my 1979 Pinto back. It didn't speak to me or listen to me. Of course, if you hit me in the rear end, I would explode. That's a down, kind of a con, if you will. Just a little bit of a con. I mean, if you get hit very hard in a Pinto, you're probably gonna want to go up quickly. So, let's see. A Russian e-commerce giant reports huge revenue jump. Chechen leader details why Ukraine counteroffensive would benefit Russia. China launches military drills around Taiwan. A Ukrainian missile downed over Crimea, says governor. Italy's birth rate at historic low. Hidden sanctions on Russian grain could spark global famine, says an official. Global semiconductor sales plummet, says report. Airlines warned of danger from erupting volcano. Russian toy stores face monopoly shortage, says media. Yep, they are running short on Monopoly games. So, I mean, we probably ought to get a humanitarian mission into the nation and get those kids some Monopoly games. Former Russian president believes Ukraine will disappear. It might. Along with a whole lot of land around it, big old crater. A Muslim nation's wary of U.S. intentions, says Gallup. U.S. open to creative solutions in arrested journalist case, says Wall Street Journal. So, when they say creative solutions, the thing that comes to mind is what's been kind of offered up. And to my knowledge, what's been offered up to this point has been Julian Assange in trade. So, I don't know whether or not that trade is gonna, man, that would be awesome. Seriously, I do. I think I want what's in Assange's best interest. It's what I want. And the current situation, nor extraditing him here, is in his interest. I do believe that Russia would take care of him, just as they've taken care of Edward Snowden. I have no ill will. I support Assange 100%, same as I support Snowden. Those men did what they're supposed to do. Snowden, you're supposed to whistleblow if there's stuff like that going on. That's the patriot thing to do. Assange, that's what journalism is. And the whole point of having, sources, unrevealed sources, and all that stuff is so that people will come to you with, valuable information, and not have to fear retribution for that. That's part of the whole process. That's part of the whole reason why we have the First Amendment. It's without freedom of the press, you are screwed. And it's bad enough that most of our press is lying for whatever reason, for monetary gain, for power, for every reason that they're lying and misleading. It's crazy. U.S. deploys nuclear sub to the Middle East. U.S. ready for war with China, says Congressman. Soros' son granted repeated White House access, says NYP. Yeah, he may be. He may be another character. However, the information that he's released is not false. So, that's what I go by. What he brought to the table, is it legitimate, and is it beneficial for us to know? And I have to say yes on both of those two things. So really anything else is semantics. It just doesn't matter. The information's correct. That's what matters. I guarantee I've been saying that stuff long before Snowden came out. So let's see. And I'm telling you, even your local police department has the ability to do things they shouldn't have the ability to do. I saw it myself with my own two eyes. I saw them show me my private conversations. So, on social media. So, I know for a fact what they have the capability of doing, even at the local level. Let's see. Tehran announces new measures to enforce mandatory veiling. Argentinian soccer star applies for Russian passport. Let's see. Oh, now we are to today's headlines. Another sip of coffee. Yay, we're almost done. Covered that and that. Ukraine will eventually reveal horrible losses, says ambassador. Let's see. Oh, right on. I hear you. Yeah, I don't. I take that no idol thing very, very seriously in the good book, and so I don't even look up to people in a matter to where I get wrapped up in them and stuff. So as far as who Assange is personally or whatever, I don't care. It's all about the information. Let's see. Covered that. Building collapses in French city. I don't know if I covered that one. Did cover that. And that. World Energy Council sees role for gas and green transition. German military to take action after increased drone sightings at bases, says media. That would be probably a good idea. Forbes details crypto billionaires' huge losses. Let's see, covered that. Kremlin blasts Western hysteria over Russian nuclear plans. Chinese cars winning over Russian market, says envoy. Officials warn of toxic smoke cloud after Hamburg fire. FBI targeting Russians on Facebook, says Fox. Well, that would be a good thing. If they're actually doing their stated job, that would be a good thing. But they actually took time off from targeting Americans to target some Russians. So that's sweet of them. Israeli spy agency encouraged anti-Netanyahu protests, says leaked papers. Uh-oh. Let's see. Ukraine's foreign reserves hit record high, says an official. Saudi Omani delegates arrive in Yemen for peace talks. Moscow set to deploy tank hunters to Ukraine conflict zone, says an official. Ukrainian church to ban prayers in Russian. I don't know where I got communist. Maybe China. China's claim on Taiwan is there it is. China's claim on Taiwan is communist delusion, says Ukraine. I was wondering where I got the communists from. Let's see. I believe it or not, I speed read, and so I read way ahead, and so sometimes I get words mixed up. Let's see. U.S. open to deploying troops in Taiwan, says a lawmaker. Russia almost shot down British spy plane, says Washington Post. And that is it. That is it. It's just a little bit of news. Just a little bit. Holy hell. Gonna run and hide, I think. Tonight would be a good night to to make up our fancy the end is nice signs and go outside running around. I don't know. It's a nice night here for it. I mean, it's currently, well, it says 60 degrees. I don't know if that's been updated any time in the last 4,000 years. No, my computer doesn't update very often. 57 degrees for the temperature. Yeah, you know, I mean, if you're running around very hard, you won't break much of a sweat, you know. So just make sure you use lots of glitter because it's dark out. Make sure you use lots of glitter so the cars on the street right before they run over you, they'll light up your sign real nice, and you know they'll get to read what you had to say right before they run over you. So wait, we might not want to do that. Anyway, I'm gonna get off here before I come up with more great ideas, and God willing, we'll be back tomorrow night. And I appreciate you coming, and I hope to see you tomorrow. As always, God bless you. We love you. Be one with your spirit, and shalom.